Welcome, busy gamers. Today we're going to be talking about the Mageseeker. What's good, what's bad, and that all-important question, is it worth your time? Now, the Mageseeker was developed by Digital Sun, and it's an action role-playing game that's set in the League of Legends universe. Though you do not need to be familiar with the League of Legends titles to enjoy this one. Riot is now doing a pretty great job at turning the League intellectual property into something bigger than its origins, with games like this and the Netflix show Arcane. Enough of that though. In this game you're going to be playing as Silas, a recently escaped mage and a former Mageseeker in a classic tale of the oppressed overturning their oppressors. Now, at the time of this review, I've played the Mageseeker for about 13 hours, and I've completed the story as well as most of the achievements and collections that the game has to offer. So what's good about the Mageseeker? First, let's look at the combat, because everything starts very simple, with Silas employing primarily physical attacks and doing the occasional theft of magic. They'll turn that magic on the Mageseeker, basically taking their power, giving it right back to them, or more likely, giving it back to their friends, with the way most battles are set up in this game. So take many of the early fights with fire and ice mages. You can go knock them down with your chains, but it's faster to steal the fire or the ice mage's power and then turn it to the opposing element and trigger their weakness. When attacking enemies with their opposing element, you're going to be doing drastically higher damage, and early on, one shot with an opposing element will take around 80% of the health and making the final blows pretty quick and easy. Now, your skills do ramp up over time though, with additional elements and a wide variety of effects coming into play in the game. And by the end of the game, you're going to be wielding about 4 chosen spells in addition to maintaining the ability to steal from your enemies when you need to. Now, boss fights are probably where I would say the steal and counter magic really excels the most, and while I enjoyed the combat throughout the game, it was almost always possible to brute force a fight with physical attacks outside of the boss mechanics. In the boss mechanics, your focus was definitely on magic, with physical moves only utilized to recharge and rebuild your magical reserves. The bosses were also legitimately challenging, with even the early giant helmet style bosses giving me a little bit of trouble until I got the rhythm down. And another one of the early bosses, which I won't go into too much due to story spoilers, was a small child that basically put me into one of my own nightmares. As you platforming around, utilizing your chains to travel, as well as some button mashing and then countering with spells. I thought this was all done really well, and I was engaged throughout the fight, and it took me a few tries to pass. On to level design as well. Overall, I think the level design was very simple. So the level design itself is probably not going to get the good call out here, but the game did still manage to reward you for being kind of thorough and paying attention to your environment. So what I'm really calling out as good with level design is that there were plenty of hidden little areas that allowed you to collect these little birds, read hidden letters, and increase your power with currency. So I did feel rewarded for kind of exploring and going off the beaten path and being like, oh hey, what is that, or could I go through here? There are also quite a bit to upgrade and engage with here, so there were several unique mechanisms that made progression feel rewarding, and I think that's really important in a game. Now, this is a shorter game, but it's still important to have several different areas you can progress in. There was spell crafting, so once you copied a spell you could learn it permanently, and some of those upgrades then unlocked future upgrades, as well as things like additional permanent spell slots. So there was always something to work forward to there, and it made it to where you would always want to steal spells. Blacksmithing also improves your chains, giving you improved damage and health. Training and recruiting also improves the companions or the supporting characters that kind of alter what elements you're strong in for a given level, as well as kind of add these unique little combo attacks that can alter your overall gameplay. So I thought all of that was done really well, and they're just little things that unlock over time and make it just a little bit more fun and give you another little target to improve. Alright, so what's bad about the Mageseeker? For me, the dialogue is what I'm going to call out here. The dialogue was kind of stunted and poorly written, especially early on in the campaign. You'd constantly communicate with people in this kind of snide but bloodthirsty remarks, all while others would still treat you as if you had a good heart and a hidden kindness or something of that nature. It improves as time goes on, and you kind of start to see that hidden kindness that people seemed to see in you, but early on there was really 100% no reason for other people to think that about you. And so I felt like it was just a little stunted. And the overarching story is solid, the dialogue in any given moment is just lacking. Now there's also some inconsistency in how ledges work, and this honestly annoyed me more than it probably should have. In many areas of the game, the ledges would hard stop you and prevent any movement. However, in some areas, this just wasn't the case. Even in some areas in which the ledge wasn't one you're going to be traveling past or over as a gap. The game was also just pretty short. Now, while it started slow, and I probably completed 20 to 30% of it before I was really engaged into the story, once it actually ended, it did leave me wanting more. I completed the entire game in under 13 hours as I went back and did some of the little achievements and things of that nature. So while it really fits an ephemeral efficiency, it really fits this particular channel, some people are going to want a longer game with more to sink their teeth into. I've already mentioned it a little bit, so I won't really hammer it home too much more, but the game just has too slow of a start, especially for the story. The story itself was good. They take this discordant person that is trapped in a cage, basically chained up, and they turn him into kind of the hero of a rebellion, but he's less a leader and more a figurehead that is ran by a much more structured, kind, and less bloodthirsty overall organization. And so while he is the quote-unquote hero, he also isn't really explicitly the leader, and I thought that was a good complexity to the story without going into too many details here. But a little bit more of that kind of awkwardness in the story is, well, why, after breaking out of jail, do I just randomly leave the chains on my hands 24/7? I know it's the mechanic that I reach out and grab things with, but it has nothing to do with Silas's magic as a general rule, and why he does that just blows my mind. Yes, we use our oppression as a weapon here, but the idea of leaving your handcuffs on permanently just feels insane to me. Okay, let's move on to the ephemeral efficiencies. We've already talked about one. It takes less than 15 hours to complete. I say 15 hours here. I completed it in under 13, probably under 11. I'm not 100% sure exactly how long it took, but I think even if you're taking your time, everybody's going to be able to complete this game in under 15 hours. It also now saves at each shrine, which means that the already relatively short levels are broken up by shrines. The shrines allow you to heal, they allow you to change out your constant spells, and they save the game. So if you have to leave, even during the middle of those short levels, you can come right back there. Or if a boss kills you 3 or 4 times, you gotta go to work, right back into it. And they are placed really regularly throughout the levels. The last thing is, if you are struggling here, it has amazing difficulty sliders. You can increase Silas's health, you can change his damage, you can do a lot to customize the way your power fantasy is going to go here and the way you're able to play through the game. And I think that's really excellent. I think that's something that some people are going to want so they can, boom, go right back into the story and move on down the road. So on to the final scores for this particular game. I'm going to give this game a 6. Now that might seem like a lower score, and sometimes I kind of hate the idea of giving numbers to things. I think it was a good game with a good story, but for the price and for what's going on here, I felt like there was a little bit lacking. The story good, but the dialogue again a little bit poor, and just kind of left me feeling out of it a lot of the time. Its ephemeral efficiency score here, though, I am going to give a 9. I thought it was done extraordinarily well from a respect of your time perspective. You could get through the story, you could change things if you wanted to, and it was engaging throughout, and if you were ever hitting a wall, you could immediately clear that wall and move on if needed. Alright, that is where I'm at for the Mageseeker. I hope everybody has enjoyed this video, and until next time, enjoy gaming.